Here I am. God, all joy. Here I am. And his response was, and God's response was, here I am. My mother's here. Mom, we stand. On the way home, she said, all right, I'm going to ride home. So I knew what that meant. All my friends and family who came to see me, and all my child brothers who were watching online, and my family who were watching online. Well, good morning. This is my initial sermon. Jesus' initial sermon is found in Luke, the 4th chapter. Jesus, don't turn to it. Jesus, it was customary for Pharisees to pick on poor Jewish peasants because most of the world and the society of the first century were illiterate peasants. So during the worship service, as a way to embellish, I guess, their class and to show how much high above everyone else they would call somebody out of the congregation knowing they couldn't read. One day, I think they made a mistake because they called on Jesus. Jesus opened up Jesus found the scroll he wanted, which it deviates from the liturgical reading that they have, and he picked Isaiah for his initial sermon. And he read, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, and has anointed me to preach good news to the poor, to open the eyes of the blind, and to set at liberty those who are in captivity. Well, I am a follower of Jesus, so I am going to open Isaiah's scroll and read from the 11th chapter of Isaiah, verses 6 through 9. Please stand and do something we don't normally do. Can you read with me? Ready? The wolf shall live with the lamb, the leopard shall lay down with the kid, and the fountain together, and the child shall lay down. Amen. And the water covered the sea. Amen. I like to talk to me, singing the ultimate promise. I was having dinner last summer with my mom and a family friend who's here this morning, and we were discussing how different the world is when they were my age. They were acknowledging that our society become more open to diversity. Class, religion, race, ability status, and etc. Privilege is giving benefits to one group and not another. That's all privilege is. It has nothing to do with your hate or bigotry. It is simply you give benefits and considerations to one group and not another. Our society privileges people who are white, male, non-disabled, and the wealthy. Right? So what is the church in this growing age of diversity? How well are we doing? Well, according to a Pew Research survey done back in 2012, people identifying as Christian dropped by 5% between 2007 and 2012. However, those identifying as non-religious and the various non-religious identities that fall in that category grew by 4.3% in the same time. As a matter of fact, the number of people non-employed has surpassed the number of people identifying themselves as evangelical Christians. A survey conducted by Richard Putnam at Harvard and David Campbell at Notre Dame asked people what they thought about the church and why they left. The overwhelming response was, quote, was that many young Americans came to view religion as judgmental, homophobic, hypocritical, and too political. However, I hear me like the thing is, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, I have power throughout the universe displayed. I wonder, if God created diversity in the stars, in plants, fish, and every other animal, why are God's people so uncomfortable with May I argue that God is the author of diversity? And knowing God is simply embracing all the diverse ways life and love show up to us in different people. The story around today's text really starts back in chapter 7. Judah and the seed. There's a shortage of food. Isaiah goes to King Ahaz and says, I'm reading. It's good covered. So there's no food. And God said, God will give you a sign. Ahaz's response was, well, I don't need a sign. God said, I'm not going to put the Lord to the test. And Isaiah responds, I said that I'm sort of your side. You know, I'm getting annoyed with you. Everybody else is. and now God is. God is simply annoyed by your appearing to be pious, right? Ahaz is a part of the nobility of the ancient world. In the ancient world, most people are peasant farmers. They are poor. A siege makes their difficult situation worse. A small minority of people hold the majority of the wealth. Privilege blinded Ahaz. Privilege often blinds people. And it's not always intentional. It does. It is easy for Ahaz to put personal piety over the needs of people. Ahaz thinks he is demonstrating faith by refuting the Lord's sign. Because after all, the Lord will take care of it. And I'm good. You know, I don't need a sign to know that God is working. I have faith. Perhaps this really isn't faith. Perhaps this is more atheism than faith. Faith is believing in God's vision for the world and becoming committed enough to make it happen. It's just like there was a government shutdown, and they had thought that it was only God's responsibility to bring justice to God's people. They had thought that God was more interested in his personal piety than his communal responsibility. God for him was a pacifier. And a way to ignore the needs of the people. Maybe because God, his conception of God seems so distant and so out there and so away from him that people became distant and far off and away from him. This is why God says, behold, a young woman shall conceive, and their son called his name Emmanuel. Not God out there, not all of us, God with us. Perhaps Ahaz thought that these people are different and far off, and so they could pretend that these people didn't exist. Isaiah predicted Ahaz was a vision that there will be a day when there is plenty of food for everyone to eat. The land will be prosperous again. The shutdown will be over. But it doesn't stop there. Isaiah goes on this somewhat like a prophetic stream. Right? Fast forward to chapter 9. There's a child who's going to be born, and son given, and he's supposed to restore David's throne and change things. Chapter 10 is interesting, though. Isaiah is warning those who spoke before about judgment from God, and Assyria is coming. However, God will deliver them. Now the ultimate promise. Now the ultimate promise. The promise that God is trying to get God's children to live in. the promise of how everyone is supposed to relate to each other in society in the face of unearned privilege and power. Discriminatory policies will be replaced because the text says the wolf shall lie with the lamb. The leopard shall lie down with the kid, and the calf and the lion and the puppy together, and the little child shall lead them. The cow and the bear shall raise their young. They shall lie down together, and the lion shall eat straw like the ox. The nursing child shall play over the hole of the ass, and the weaned child shall put his hand on the ear's end. They will not hurt or destroy on my holy mountain, for the earth will be full of the knowledge of the Lord, and the water cover the sea. God has a vision for the world, and people are begging and beginning to wake up to it. This way of seeing the world challenges privilege and domination. But in order for us to see the world like God sees it, we cannot view God as the omniprivileged. The reason why this view of the world seems so peaceful is because the knowledge of the Lord is that the waters cover the sea. The water and the sea are very much connected, aren't they? Water does not have a parallel relationship to the sea. It's very essence. Water does not exist over against the sea. It fills it. There will be a world where all of life realizes its connection to the source of all life, and life itself realizes what it is at its core. At its core, wolves will not eat lambs. Lions will not dominate resources from oxen. Cows and bears will stop passing down their fear and opposition to their children. Domination in this consciousness and awareness of who and what God really is cannot exist. Those of you who remember Dr. Priest's word, Bible say on Lord in all caps, know that that's in place of God's personal name. We don't say it. I regret. But wasn't that God's reply to Moses when he says, "Who do I say sent me?" Well, which really, essentially, is the same question as, what authority do I have? God said, just say my name. I am that I am. Or it could be, I will be. Notice the capital. I will be what I will be. Or I am becoming what I am becoming. I cannot be locked into a gender or ethnicity or belief or etc. or religion I am. I am. That's the Lord. Moses, it simply means that Moses was God's channel for liberation. And we are the channel by which God's beloved community comes through. Perhaps then peace and equality comes when all of life realizes what we are at our core. And that is a representation or re-representation of the glory and the love and the justice and beauty of God. Fear and darkness have nowhere in this awareness of the Lord's presence. Creatures that once preyed on each other will work together. Amen. Creatures will no longer be threatened by each other's difference. The ones who are the most underprivileged in our society, the children, will be free from fear first. And they will teach us about welcoming difference without fear. That's good. So what? so what does this awareness look like in practical human-to-human relations? What is our role in ensuring a world where wolves live with lambs, and how we challenge these systems of privilege? Well, first, awareness of the Spirit of God, the practice, and how we relate to one another is affirming and embracing our differences without fear. The wolf lives with the odds. Leopards and baby goats lying together, and the cow and the bear, they get along. My favorite image in the text is the lion eating straw like the ox. All of these animals have to give up their sense of what's normal and have a new way of all of these animals have to give up their sense of what's normal and have a new way of being. God, one of the key indicators of privilege is that people in privileged positions and in the dominant group get to define themselves as normal. If that norm is scared, is threatened, then they become scared, and they phone groups like the Tea Party, and they go on Fox News and stuff. Yeah. As a result of the age of imperialism, there are those who associate order and decency and being dignified with being European, right? So, and this is the real basis for racism and xenophobia and other forms of discrimination and discrimination based on gender. This is why schools have a problem with administering special education, because it's trying with the best of its ability to help children navigate an ableist education system without challenging able privilege. I don't know how they should do that. I don't know. Ableism is the assumption of what and someone with disability should be doing because they can't do it like everyone else. Right? So we define certain groups of people as normal and label everyone else as abnormal, not natural, substantial, or even less than human. God does not have a normal way of doing anything. God's good. God's Spirit allows for our unity and our different expressions of being. Did I say being? Of being human. Second, our duty as Christians is to challenge system of and inequality, is the title. Those who pray, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, have a duty to work for an equal and just society. We do it listening to the oppressed groups openly, not exercising our privilege as a member of a dominant group to minimize their experience. The text says, and the little child shall lead them. The most marginalized of society can teach us about total inclusion, what it is, what it is not. It's interesting that God lets children be the ones to usher us into the beloved community. They have no fear of difference and diversity until they're told to. Isaiah is very important to what I call the Jesus movement. The first followers of Jesus found things in Isaiah that matched the life he lived, so they interpreted Isaiah through the lens of Jesus. Perhaps they saw something. They gave the story of Jesus saying, suffer the little children that come unto me, for such is the kingdom of heaven. Perhaps that gave us that story and made it popular and entered the Gospels. Jesus was a peasant Palestinian Jewish male under occupation. He was not privileged. My text this morning was a critique to privilege. At the very basic level, God emptied God's self and God's power and privilege and gave all of God's self for us. Additionally, death on the cross is only reserved for political offenders. Jesus preached a kingdom of God that challenged privilege in his religious system, tried and handed over to Rome to be crucified. He was a poor man of color, lynched by Rome. This is in Italy, now this is in Europe. So here we Christians are, right? Here we are, Christians, 2,000 years later, and we adopted the symbol of the cross, right? The cross is the central piece of our faith. It is an insult to domination. Every church that was thought had the symbol in prominent view. Every church does. It is reserved for the underprivileged. The cross. Identify with the marginalized. The cross. What happens when you preach in God's beloved community and you live your life like it's already here? The cross. What happens when you suggest that human dignity and justice is more important than personal piety? The cross. When you preach that God may not only have sheep that you know not of, but wolves and perhaps some goats as well. The cross. But I'm so glad I called Jesus. I am so glad I called Jesus. The cross is not a final sign. Somewhere I read, whoever tries to keep their life will lose it. Whoever loses their life will preserve it. God raised Christ from the dead. Because Christ lives in us, we've got this blessed assurance no matter who I am, who we are, where we've come from, how people may look down on us for being different. There is God on our side. There's a presence that is never in absence, fighting for our equal rights and for our expressions, our full expressions as human beings. The wolf and the lamb shall live together. My grandmother used to sing, heard me talk about my grandmother a lot. My grandmother used to sing, the wicked shall cease from troubling, and the weary shall be at rest. All the saints and angels will sit at God's feet and be blessed. Amen.